right now. What's going on, everybody? We're back. Sit down territory with the full crew. Louis is still not fired over here. I got to do something about that, apparently. Taking minutes off.
The boss of this show. I ran it without Tyler last week, and I didn't get fired. So I take that as full. Possession is 9/10 of the law.
Yeah, we can't dispute those facts here. That's what we have to bring you. So before we get into our show today, just a quick shout out to StadiumRant for letting us be here doing this show. Thank you so much for listening to this original. If you like this content, you should subscribe to our free newsletter. We'll have exclusive interviews, articles of the week, find all of our great shows. As soon as you click on one of our articles from any of our socials, you'll get a drop-down menu to subscribe to that newsletter, so make sure you do it. But other than that, we might as well get to the news drop. Little sadness to start. Ryan Mallett passed away tragically. There's not a bunch of information on it currently. Extremely sad to hear that, though. Thoughts and prayers go out to everybody who cares about him and anybody that was related to anybody like that. So you hate to see that happen. Other than that, it looks like in NFL news, Dalvin Cook has an offer from the Dolphins. I put here on the show sheet that Dalvin Cook was just he's been mingling with the AFC East just in general. But the Dolphins are the one to formally put the offer in. Shane, you want to start since you're back? You haven't been live here in a little bit.
Yeah, I bet y'all missed me too. How y'all doing?
We have missed you.
We did.
We definitely did.
I think with Dalvin Cook is kind of interesting. He and DeAndre Hopkins are in the same bubble of they both know they're going to have suitors. They both know they're going to be day one impact players. Maybe not necessarily the starters, but maybe in that starting group. Because nowadays NFL, you need 3 true starting receivers, and most teams use like a rotation of backs of like 2 or 3 different players. And I think Miami makes a lot of sense because even though they added Jeff Wilson last year via trade to team back up with Mike McDaniel, they added Devon Achane from Texas A&M, who's really much more of a lightning in a bottle kind of player. He's got amazing speed after the dig. Like so, if you go on the outside, for example, you make a dig and go straight forward. Not a lot of players have that ability to turn their speed the way he does and in a turn direction style. Dalvin Cook though gives you that more of a veteran sustainability at the running back position. And even though his market might not be as high just because a lot of teams really in the NFL in general, the running back position ain't valued at what it used to be. But, I think the Dolphins were like the obvious one just for a couple reasons. They have an obvious need for a much more defined running back. They have guys who can play roles. Raheem Mostert can play a role. Jeff Wilson Jr. can play a role. Devon Achane can play a role. Neither one of them can do what the other one does, but neither one of them can really do it all. Whereas Dalvin Cook shows that kind of sustainability. This will be his 7th year, I believe, in the NFL. And actually, I have his numbers right here. He was approaching to being the second leading rusher in Vikings history, just under 6,000 yards rushing. Last year had a 4.4 yards per carry, his career low, but his yards per contact was actually the 3rd highest of his career. So he had a lot more of those contact plays, whereas he didn't have the same kind of burst he once does. He didn't really slow down, but he didn't have the same kind of burst out of the backfield he once did. But he sustained that power and mobility. And I think in Mike McDaniel's offense, which predicates itself on establishing the run in multiple different ways, I think it makes a lot of sense for the fit. I would not be surprised if he does sign there. I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't think he's in a hurry to sign anywhere because I don't think he wants to really go to training camp before he actually has to. More than likely, he's going to sign if he does after that initial couple weeks in training camp where teams are away from their facilities and then they move back home. I think that would be around the time because he wants to get in there enough time to learn the offense and get himself adequate with the team, but not so much more that he has to put more on his body before he actually needs to. And, for what it's worth, he is a Florida boy. That obviously has something to do with it. And I think really, if he wanted to go to a contender where he could be the potential number 1 running back, Miami makes the most sense.
I totally agree with you there. One thing I don't think you mentioned, he also had 3 or 4 rushes of over 75 yards still last year, or maybe not rushes, but there was a screen pass that he took for 85 yards from Kirk Cousins that gave Kirk Cousins like that top 3 week as a fantasy quarterback for no reason for himself. But regardless, there was the 74-yard run. There was a 90-yard run, I'm pretty sure. So he's still he may have lost some of his maybe durability. I don't think he's lost any of his speed. So like you said, in a Mike McDaniel system that's predicated on speed, building the run, and that doesn't really have that workhorse type of back that we all been screaming for the Shanahan system to have. Look what happened last year with CMC once it got it. Like could see similar type production there. Not to that extent, but similar style of production. Louis, what do you think?
I want to know where Shane has Miami's O-line compared to the Vikings going into this year. Shane's our resident O-line guy.
It's tough just because Connor Williams reestablished himself from the Cowboys to the Dolphins. For those that know, he played left guard with the Cowboys. He comes to the Dolphins, plays center, and he has one of his best years of his career. Teron Armstead is had kind of an off and on year, but he's still Teron Armstead, considered one of the best offensive linemen in the league. And I don't think necessarily that the offensive line has a lot of reliable players. They don't have any sort of standout players other than Teron Armstead for obvious reasons. I think they have a reliable offensive line. The Vikings offensive line is kind of interesting to me just because their upside and their floor, we've kind of seen the ebbs and flows of that both. When they're on top of their game, players like Brian O'Neill, Garrett Bradbury, and I'm trying to remember the other tackle's name, Christian Darrisaw.
Yeah, Darrisaw.
Last year, we saw them perform at a high level, and it didn't really matter who the guard was because they had a rotation of guards in the interior. And that's what makes it interesting for them also because we saw them at their worst and at their best. When they're at their worst, Kirk Cousins would get pressured 1 out of every 4 dropbacks. I think his highest sack performance was 6 in a game, if I remember right. I don't have that in front of me. But with Miami, it's way more important, obviously, because Tua coming off two concussions in a single season. We thought his career might have been over really at the end of the year. I definitely had that thought that he might have hung it up. Because when I saw him go down those multiple times, you saw him stumble against Blake. I know you did against the Bills.
I was there.
You were there, yeah. Well, there you go. It was a scary thing. Even though obviously you and Blake were obviously Blake and Tyler, y'all hate the Dolphins because y'all being AFC East guys. But just as a human level, you had to be concerned for that. No, you didn't.
No. As I was saying, as I was gonna agree with you. I meant to agree with you. My bad. I was saying no, and you don't want to see that happen, regardless of whatever fandom you are. That's a person. That's an athlete trying to make a wage and do something for his family. You know what I mean? So you hate to see injuries in any sport.
It reminded me a little bit. It reminded me of Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
That offensive line and what could have been a Hall of Fame career was cut way too short.
Yeah. So my thoughts on it is one, that running back room is going to be really crowded. I don't necessarily think the O-line, from my initial kind of glance, I don't really think it's moving far away from what it was on the Vikings. So I think Cook's still going to be efficient. I think what they have to be comfortable doing is a 2-back sets, because what you have to do is you have to create a backfield where defenders can't pin their ears down and just go after the quarterback, because that's what's been getting Tua in trouble. If you watch, a lot of his sacks last season come off empty backfields, or where the running back gets out really quick, doesn't come up in the pass pro.
Quick motion, yeah.
I think they have to be comfortable, with 2 dynamic backs they can put back there to kind of mix things up and keep the defensive linemen more in a contained formation than a pure rush formation. So I think Cook gives it to them. I have a hard time envisioning how you're taking the 4 backs of Jeff Wilson, Dalvin Cook, Mostert, and is it a chain? A chain?
I go A-chain.
A-chain?
I go A-chain.
To me, I think A-chain and Mostert are a little bit duplicate, as would Jeff Wilson and Dalvin Cook be. I think Cook gives the most upside of any of them, but to me, I think Mostert finds himself on the outside looking in on this one. I think A-chain is going to replace that skill set of he's fast. He's kind of your get it to the outside, explosive play guy. So if Cook's comfortable taking like a split carry role with Wilson, I think that ground game becomes really reliable and helps take some of that pressure off of Tua.
Bahuki, before you go, just real quick, Mostert and Jeff Wilson have reputations of being like plastic in the league. So, like their injury history is extensive. Like their medical history is extensive. So he could sign there, and very well they could both get injured, and all of a sudden it's just a 2-back A-Chain Cook situation. But all right, Bahuki, what do you think about Dalvin and the Dolphins?
You also got Sylvan Ahmed and Myles Gaskin in there too, who I think would be the most immediate cuts if he gets signed there. You put Dalvin Cook on any of the AFC East teams, and it's such a massive upgrade to any other offenses. And he's obviously so just devastating as a runner and a home run hitter. But what's really like kind of become more valuable is for a running back in the modern NFL is that like third down running back kind of skill set is kind of the first down running back skill set these days. Someone who can block and someone who can catch the ball. And Dalvin Cook is an excellent pass blocker, and like you said, that's what you're going to need for Tua. He's an extension of the offensive line on passing plays. I'd rather him go to the Dolphins than him go to the Jets right now. As a Bills fan, the Jets are the team that I'm actually the most nervous about. And having because I know the Jets are in the mix too, and Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall that's just nightmare fuel right there.
My Breece Hall shares don't need that at all. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
him go to Miami, please.
And even him going to the Patriots, if they, because I know the Patriots are in the conversation too. If in the end they don't end up getting DeAndre Hopkins, if he goes to, they're saying
as their running back.
But what's up?
I said the Patriots are fantastic at utilizing their running backs.
Yeah, and if you had Dalvin Cook and Ramondre Stevenson, that would be problematic. That might be even a bigger upgrade to the Patriots than DeAndre Hopkins. I know they're missing like that true number one receiver, but and if you put him on the Bills, obviously the Bills are kind of their offense is like one home run hitter away from really being like a favorite. Only issue is their cap space is just kind of they're looking in their wallet like trying to pull out a couple pennies here. And
I don't know if I got it. They got the T-Rex arms.
Yeah, that's kind of where Brandon's at right now. So with all that being said, send him to Miami. Miami is it? I don't know. They've got a lot of expectations, and their fans have been talking so much this offseason. Boy, oh boy, give them another piece. I don't care.
Hope we'll do a lot of.
So Mostert's contract is worth $5.6 million over 2 years, and Wilson is worth $8.2 max. So I just have a hard time envisioning, right? Cook taking a 1-year deal seems a little weird to me because I think he's going to be in a worse bargaining position next year than he is this year, coming off a 1,000-yard season. And I just can't imagine them having like 18, 19 million tied up in a backfield that features, those three guys and a rookie. Like, I know what you meant, Blake, about the guys they currently have on the roster going into the offseason program. But to me, one of these guys who got a big contract, they're going to give him his guaranteed money and cut their losses. Like, if you can save $4 million against the cap by cutting Mostert, I think you're going to do that. Yep. Yeah. Especially if it's for Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, that makes sense completely. So yeah, that I feel like we kind of talked Dalvin Cook up there pretty much. We've been doing the D-Hop thing, this dance for a minute. I mean, I don't really have much else to say other than they let him leave. So I'm pissed. We can move on if we'd like to. Shane, unless you want to say something about this whole D-Hop situation.
Lamb, I know you love the Patriots. I can't see him team up with Bill O'Brien again. I'm sorry. I just can't. I don't even know if I necessarily see him in Tennessee, even though those are two teams that have shown the most interest because the Titans need receivers, but they need a lot of stuff. The only thing that works in his favor is that he gets to go back to the AFC South and play his old team, and they
Likes Vrabel.
Yeah, he does like Vrabel. Oh, everybody likes Vrabel. Vrabel is one of the most like underrated, most like respected coaches in the NFL.
Yeah, he's a big pulling point for them.
Yep,
absolutely.
I think if Hopkins really wanted to go to a contender that needs a receiver and that could use him, I don't really know that many contenders right now that are in desperate need of what he would probably be a number 2 receiver. Most contenders in the NFL today have their guy. The Bills have Stephon Diggs. The Bengals have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
Maybe the Giants.
The Giants have already spent a lot of money in the receiver, and they're trying to like losses. Plus they're trying to shell them. They're trying to shell out money to Daniel Jones, and they're in their contract negotiations with Saquon Barkley. I could Chiefs if he's willing to take a pay cut, because right now the Chiefs cap situation is kind of similar to the Bills. That I think they have like $3 million to play with. It would have to be a heavily incentive contract where he takes a low base pay, maybe for a year, maybe 2. Only if he really wants to contend this year.
I get you.
Honestly, I think what's going to happen, if we're touching on this briefly, is I think he's going to go somewhere like left field. Like, watch him end up on the Broncos or something. Like, just somewhere weird, to like support a younger core and get a bag somewhere that could possibly make a playoff push.
I saw the Panthers and the Browns.
The Panthers makes absolutely zero sense to me. If you want to play with a rookie quarterback, he already lives in Houston. I think they'd give him more money because of the fan base pull. They're really trying to re-engage the fans. So I don't know. Like, I don't have a problem with Bryce Young or the Panthers. I know a couple Panthers fans, and they're real legit people. Situationally, I just don't necessarily see how that's any different than the Texans. And I think there's greater ties for him to that building than Carolina. But maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, I get you.
T-Hop, if you're watching, feel free to text me and let me know.
Give me there hasn't really been all that much news happening. We're in the midst of it, guys. We're really in the dog days of the football calendar. They got to come up with something for this week, because they've come up with something for every other week in the year. So where's our football thing for this week? Got to figure it out. We can get into our next segment here, though. So, will Kyle Shanahan ever win a Super Bowl? And how hot is his seat if he doesn't win one this year? Who wants to start? Big, you want to go?
Yeah, I'm going to start it off with a hot take. I don't think his seat is going to be that hot, because I think his team is going to make it to the Super Bowl. I think his team is going to lose.
Oh.
And he drops with that. I think his team's going to lose. Bam.
Yep. You're back.
Well, maybe that's true. But I don't know. Maybe. Anyways, I say team goes to the Super Bowl and loses. I say it's going to be whoever the healthiest of the big 3 in the AFC is at the end of the year. But I think right now that at least to me, the Chiefs are the class of the AFC, and they're the team that everyone's looking up at, and that could change. So objectively, I'm looking at Chiefs Niners, with the Chiefs winning it and going back to back, which I know is so difficult. And then and that's not even that hot of a take. The hot take part is coming up. I think that we're about to see in the next 5-6 years, maybe even longer, we're going to see the AFC go on a run and win a lot of Super Bowls. The way that the AFC is built right now, and the way all the quarterback talent is in the AFC, the Buffalo Bills get a lot of negative attention for their performance in the 90s, rightfully so. Something that people don't talk about as much is the run that the NFC as a total won during that time. There was a 13-year run where the NFC won every single Super Bowl, and and it started with Dan Marino's Dolphins losing, and it ended with I want to say it was Drew Bledsoe's Patriots losing in 1990. It was from 1982 to 1995.
Darn it.
The Bills were 4 of those consecutively, but and this is something that's been kind of a talk among Bills fans is like where the level of talent that this Bills team has now and how they're kind of going down in the divisional round and in the conference championship round is probably where that 90s Bills team would have done, how they would have done had they been in the NFC back in the 90s. And I think we're gonna routinely lesser competition from the NFC make it to the Super Bowl and run into these big 3 teams. I think that it's likely that the Chiefs, the Bills, the Bengals have their turn at some point in the next 5 years. I think right now it's the Chiefs, but what it's really going to come down to is who's healthiest at the end of the year, and we know football. No one's healthy at the end of the year.
So Kyle Shanahan doesn't get fired because he just the NFC just can't crack through regardless.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't fire him for making it to a Super Bowl and losing. And I don't know, they've done said they're the most complete team in the NFL minus the quarterback piece. And we'll see what happens. I think that they're a dark horse contender to move for a quarterback at the trade deadline. Seeing depending how the first half of the season pans out. Louis doesn't see it. That's okay. It has to be it's a hot take for a reason. I'll let you guys go on though.
Louis, you want to beat this take up?
I think something Blake said kind of predicates why Shanahan should be on the hot seat, and that's because the Niners have the most complete roster in the NFL. And if you have the most complete roster in the NFL, and Shanahan's supposed to be an offensive guy, and I think he schemes well, and yet it always feels like their defense is the one carrying them through playoffs, right? I think that GM would go first because I think the Trey Lance trade is really going to be a talking point over these next couple of years. Like, how do you give up that much capital and not get a guy who even starts for you? You know, like that's an unprecedented move. He's not even going to play a full season for them because they're saying Darnold's ahead of him in training camp. So, you know, even if the Brock Purdy thing pans out, I'm a big Purdy guy. Everyone loves to see an underdog. You can hit on the late rounds, but all sins are not forgiven. Like first round scouting, those high level talents, because we're never saying that Brock Purdy's ceiling is anywhere close to what a 3rd overall or a 2nd overall pick should be. We're saying it's great value where they got Purdy at the bottom of the 7th, but you gave up 3 firsts to go up and get a high ceiling quarterback. They left Justin Fields on the table. He's been electric for the Bears. If he can develop, I think that's going to be a big missed opportunity. But again, championships, 4 NFC championships, I think in the last 5 years or 3 in the last 4, something like that for the Niners. I just why can't they get over the hump? And how long are fans going to be satisfied with dominant regular season performances before it translates to something? I think that is really going to be the question. Like, you don't get to have the best roster and not take home the trophy for a decade. I don't think it works that way.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Shane, you wanna get this going on your end here?
Yeah, Louis, when you said that dominant regular season performance to having mean nothing really hit home for me as a Cowboys fan.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but that's a good example because the Cowboys have a great roster too, and they don't let coaches go for 6 years, 7 years without a meaningful performance. And I know that Jerry Jones's involvement in all of that can be a bit of a quandary for fans, but I kind of have to respect the thing. Like, if you were able to do it, you would have done it. Like, at some point, performers perform. And if you can't do it, you're just taking up space for the next guy.
Right. I don't think Kyle Shanahan is on the hot seat, like win or lose this season, only because who are you going to replace him with? The only time you let go of a coach is if they've shown year in and year out that they have the inability to take them where you need to go. He's taken them to a Super Bowl not that long ago. He continues to take them to the playoffs and the NFC Championship game. Like you and Blake both pointed out, the NFC is relatively, I don't want to say weak, but shallow. Right now, it's the Niners, the Eagles, the Cowboys, and depending on how you feel, maybe the Lions. I'm a little higher on the Lions than maybe most, but again, I think it's more of like an iffy kind of thing because I understand that historically they won't do anything. I think they have a great roster, so I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Plus, the NFC North is incredibly weak. But I can't see him being on the hot seat regardless of what happens this season, just because another thing you have to worry about is that, like, if you do let him go, not only is who do you replace him with, but how do you replace what he's done with potentially with anybody next? Like Bill Belichick's don't grow on trees, Kyle Shanahan's don't grow on trees. Everyone's trying to find that Sean McVay, that Kyle Shanahan, that Zach Taylor. They're trying to find that next offensive guru who can basically win with any quarterback. Kyle Shanahan has been to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo and to the NFC Championship game with Brock Purdy. And those kind of coaches don't just like sprout out of nowhere.
So the one thing I would point to, I think it's precedent for this, is the Packers firing Mike McCarthy because he won a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers and they continually made deep playoff pushes. And I know it was a while ago, right? But he was there for like 15 seasons, I think.
Right.
Yes.
But he won the Super Bowl, I think, in his third season. Okay. Mm-hmm. This was like, I think, 8 years after he won the Super Bowl. They had made the NFC Championship game, I think, 2 or 3 more times after that. They kept making the playoffs. They couldn't go any further. They realized they had reached the apex of where this was going to go. Sometimes with coaches and with players, it ain't that you ain't good enough or that this player doesn't live for your system, but you have a limit to how good you can be with these players. It ain't necessarily who has the best coach, who has the right coach. Necessarily who has the best quarterback, who has the right quarterback. Sometimes it's both. Sometimes you have Tom Brady and Bill Belichick who are the best quarterback and the best coach for a long time, and that just kind of works itself out. Sometimes you're Andy Reid, who's an offensive guru, and you land someone like Patrick Mahomes. It's all about the right place, the right time. Kyle Shanahan has not had really what I would consider a premier quarterback talent, yet he keeps having these premier seasons. A lot of it is due to great defense and effective offense. It ain't great offense, it's effective offense.
So if it comes out that, and I don't think this will come out of the Niners locker room or front office because they're very tight-lipped, but I mean, if he was heavily involved in the Trey Lance decision, and he does have to bear some responsibility for that, not having an elite quarterback conversation, right? Because if he pushed for a guy who wasn't the guy, you can't always be like, well, he didn't have the talent. So how long would you give him, right? If he doesn't win a Super Bowl, what are we talking?
Doesn't matter because even though they gave all those picks for quarterback, they still made the NFC Championship game with Mr. Irrelevant. It didn't really matter about the draft capital you gave up for a quarterback when you still landed your franchise quarterback. Obviously, the optics make it look bad because they got this guy, and then the very next year they turn around and get the very last pick of the draft and turn him into one of the best quarterbacks in the NFC potentially. Obviously, we'll see what the sophomore season looks like with Brock Purdy coming off injury, but this season especially, regardless of what happens, Kyle Shanahan ain't going nowhere.
I don't think he's on the hot seat, but I don't think he's ever going to win a Super Bowl. I just don't. I don't think it. I think he missed his best chances. He had Matt Ryan, the offensive coordinator, Julio Jones, Atlanta Falcons, 28-3 lead.
Yeah, but
you best chance you're ever gonna get to win a Super Bowl, my guy, in any level. You boofed it, and then he had a 2-touchdown lead against the Chiefs, or I'm sorry, a 2-score lead against the Chiefs, up 10 points with 7 minutes left. What they do? They boofed that too. Kyle Shanahan, I don't know, man. Like, great regular season, excellent play caller, great motivator of men. All of these things are true. He's just never. I don't think he's ever going to get over the hump unless he lands a quarterback, and then all of a sudden the whole mythology of Kyle Shanahan's quarterbackless system becomes, oh wait, he never got the job done until he got a quarterback who was really good, right?
That's also, most head coaches.
I agree. I'm not saying he's a bad head coach. I don't know if he's ever going to win a Super Bowl with the roster how it's currently constructed because he probably should have done that already. And then to kind of fight back on what you were saying, Shane, on it doesn't matter what capital you use to try and get your future quarterback if you got your future quarterback. I think it definitely does because if they still had those other 2 first-round picks that they traded and the other swap used it on a different player, that's 3 more players on this best roster in the league that makes the roster even better. That possibly puts them over the hump. Maybe they have a better cornerback. Maybe they have another edge with Nick Bosa. Maybe they have another part to the line. And they didn't use any of that on Lance. They just drafted Purdy. I get you don't know. You take more shots at the apple, but you can't excuse making that sort of final strike to put your piece, the cherry on top of your sundae. And what you really did was took your sundae and you threw it in the garbage. Maybe not the garbage, but maybe it fell down. 5-second rule because they're the 49ers. They've done well, but
they took the ice cream and turned it into a popsicle.
Yeah, okay, that works. Satisfying snack, not nearly as good as an ice cream. Popsicles.
I think one of the really interesting things about the Niners is if they have won 2 Super Bowls by this point, I think we would be talking about Shanahan as like a Hall of Fame coach lock, right? An absolute streak of dominance. He brought home 2 titles. He got the job done without a quarterback because that's what everyone says. That's such a good point, Tyler. He does it. He does what he does without a quarterback. And if he pushed it all the way with Jimmy Garoppolo, with Brock Purdy, with whoever, and I understand injuries have been a huge part of their season, so at least get a new strength and conditioning coach, please, for the love of all things. Yeah. But, I think just a couple things different, and we would be talking about him in such a different light. So,
they win a Super Bowl with Mac Jones, honestly, last year. They win a Super Bowl with Mac Jones as quarterback if they draft Mac Jones instead of Trey Lance, number 3 overall. They win a Super Bowl. So,
Or Justin Fields.
Or definitely Justin Fields. Absolutely Justin Fields. The Mac Jones one was definitely the more hot takey one, I thought. But
they could have even waited, right? Think about this year or whatever. I even think they could have done it with Kenny Pickett. If you waited one more year until Kenny Pickett last year,
if they waited until this year, it would have been gross. CJ Stroud on that offense? No, I'm good. I'm all set.
It's I don't know. To me, and Trey Lance being such a project quarterback, it just feels like the project never unfolded.
What'd you say?
I said everyone's looking for the next Josh Allen.
I agree. But to me, it always felt weird that they reached so much on a guy with a low floor, high ceiling when the rule of the offense was always we don't need a quarterback. And if you can get a high enough floor guy, it works. And yet when the time came to put the chips in place, they rolled the dice on the really big ceiling.
They went with Lynch's decision, not Shanahan's. They went the Lynch overpowered because Shanahan wanted Mac. That was the buzz that whole time leading up to that pick. And they shocked everybody with the Lance pick, and then it turns out that Lance was Lynch's guy. So that's really this question. My answer to this question is definitely it's not on Shanahan. I don't know what it is about him. Maybe it's bad luck. It's just poor fortune for the man because he's a fantastic offensive mind. Like I said, great coach. Yeah. It hasn't gotten there. I don't know.
It always confuses me GMs who don't hit in the top rounds but do hit in the bottom rounds.
Yeah,
the
classic Belichick.
Yeah, I know there's GMs that
do a certain position, like linemen in the first round. He's like, "Word, I got that." Defensive players, for the most part, he's pretty decent. But other than that, in the top 70 picks, the dude's picking scrubs left and right. And then in the last 100 picks, he's just like, I'm gonna get 4 dudes. All of them can play, and we'll be good.
Yeah, it feels like you can crack it 320 down the fairway with your driver, but then you can't sink a 4-foot putt. It's this is supposed to be the easy part of the job.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely feel
maybe
that.
Maybe it's the GM on the Niners who ends up on the hot seat, not Shanahan.
So I could see both of them, honestly, but I don't think I could see it in a world because people overreact. I wouldn't do it personally. I like Kyle Shanahan. I think that's been misfortune for him. But if he does win a Super Bowl and it's because he gets a quarterback, I think that kind of tarnishes him just a little bit. because of the mythos about his system and the way that he runs it.
I think you just have to look at it, right, like any business. And if you bring in a new CEO and his job is to scale revenue to what? 5 million a year. Man, he can never scale revenue to 5 million, but he always holds it right at that nice 3 million number. Like, we're not growing like we want to, but the company's okay. It's like, how do you balance those two concepts? Because it is hard to admit when someone's ceiling is really high, but not high enough. Can they get the job done? I think to me, that's the thing. It's like, if we look back and he has a 14-year coaching tenure with the Niners and he makes the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl 10 times combined and doesn't bring home the trophy, why do you care?
I don't know. I mean, that dude.
I know it's a controversial opinion, but all you're doing in that run is keeping supreme talent at certain positions off your team, and you're still not doing what you set out to do.
Yeah, no, I get you. I get you, man. I'm one of the lucky few people who have seen the thing multiple times, and just every time I was flabbergasted when it was going on. Because honestly,
someday in my lifetime, either Shane or I will watch our teams take home. Texas will win a Super Bowl.
All three of you.
Probably them before us.
None of you have seen one, have you?
No.
I don't want to give up my age. I was a little kid the last time the Cowboys won the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Dang, Shane, you age gracefully, my brother.
Looking good, bro. Looking good.
I mean,
I'll say the first like two of the Pats. I was a bit young to really feel the effects, but as soon as 04 hit and then the Sox won, I was like 3 what is all this stuff? Like, that's really when sports started like hitting in for me. So after that, I was bought in. But yeah, so I say that he won't win a Super Bowl. What are the final opinions on this?
I don't think he ever gets it done. I think, like you said, I don't know if it's the Falcons. To me, I think it's the game versus the Chiefs. The first one against Patrick Mahomes. I think you make some different adjustments. I think that's the best. Like, you're up 10 points in the fourth quarter. I don't know if it gets more slam dunk than that. And I know Patrick Mahomes is going in the Hall of Fame. I know he's going to push Tom for that legacy someday, but it just feels like
that was a little worse. He was also the head coach for that one, so he was fully in charge for that. That's a little bit more weight to it, I would say. Blake, what do you think? Yes or no on him winning a Super Bowl?
As it stands right now, no. They're going to need a quarterback who's going to compete with who's coming out of the AFC, and I don't see that person in the NFC right now. Maybe Jalen Hurts, but I don't think the Eagles are going back. I think the Eagles got an early exit coming this year. But we're talking about Shanahan. I think they're gonna continue to be a strong team for the next few years, but yeah, without a dominant quarterback, I don't see it happening.
Shane, you? Yeah, no.
Winning a Super Bowl? It's hard for me to say yes, only because I can think of at least 5 AFC teams that I think maybe not necessarily have like a better roster, but have a better structure from the top down to the quarterback, and in the playoffs that matters. The Chiefs, the Bengals, the Bills, even the Jags coming along. Maybe the Ravens, depending on what that looks like. The Steelers are always a threat because I respect the hell out of Mike Tomlin, what he can do with Kenny Pickett. And in the NFC, this era in the NFC where like there's only like a small handful of really good quarterbacks. They ain't gonna be there forever. Eventually, some of these college kids are gonna come in and take over. Right now in the NFC, there's Jalen Hurts, there's Dak Prescott, there's depending on how you feel about him, Derek Carr with the Saints. Jared Goff looks pretty solid with the Lions, but I mean, Kirk Cousins with the Vikings. There ain't a lot of great.
Matt Stafford with the Rams for like one more year.
But we'll see what he looks like coming back from injury.
I'll touch on that one in our next segment. So
right now, it's hard for me to say yes.
Word. Yeah, I definitely get that.
Sorry,
All right,
Niners fans.
just 4 no's, just the straight no across the board for 5th down territory.
Oh,
Sorry,
wow.
Shanahan. All right, so yeah, I don't have a drop for this one, but it's a new segment. We're gonna call it Looming Long Shots. This is gonna be deep dives for Super Bowl contenders. It has to be plus 500 odds or more. I mean, I'll start for now. So I'll start right in the NFC because you mentioned Matt Stafford. I was looking at the numbers and we're all talking about how weak the NFC is. Like, there's no true like contender here. I really think the Rams at plus 3,500 to make the Super Bowl is there's actually some value on that number. I believe if Matt Stafford can come back fully healthy, he's probably a top 3 quarterback in the NFC, not the NFL, but in the NFC.
Right.
If Cooper Kupp comes back healthy,
Yes.
dominant weapon, dominant connection. That pretty much moves their offense right up into the top 6, I would say, in the NFC. Aaron Donald was hurt last year, so another dude. This is a lot of ifs, but at plus 3,500, when you have three dudes who've won a Super Bowl, Sean McVay, who's kind of built himself sort of his season last year was bad. He went under 500, but I would say him and Tomlin have a similar sort of persona of having this winning method of running their team and having this just, I don't know, this good ship. Like the team's going to be good no matter what type of players are on it. And I think if their higher caliber players come back and are healthy, this number really should be like, I think 2,800, maybe even 2,500. Like with how weak the NFC is, there's no clear. If they were in the AFC, this just wouldn't even be a thing for me. Like, it wouldn't even be on my radar. But I saw it. I kind of like the McVay pedigree there, like good coaching staff, elite quarterback, wide receiver tandem. Cam Akers showed like he could possibly carry that workload as well. I think they retooled their offensive line towards the end of last year, which was one of the major issues at the beginning of last year when Von Miller was running through them in that first game of the year. So yeah, I think the Rams have a decent shot to, if they make the playoffs, they have much more like playoff experience than most of those teams, really. Like, they have more than the Vikings. Maybe the 49ers are probably the only team with as much playoff experience. And if Stafford's healthy, he's beat the 49ers before in the playoffs. Similar situation. So that's my NFC deeper dive long shot. And my AFC one is going to be the Jaguars at plus 1,500 because this kind of coincides with my favorite future of Trevor Lawrence MVP at plus 1,400. If he's playing at an MVP level, I think they add to their weapons. We've talked about the Jags a lot. I think at plus 1,500, there's 300-ish odds points of value there. I think it should be at plus 1,200 for the Jags. I think it should be a little closer to the Ravens than the Dolphins. I'm not sure why it's not. Maybe it's because of their defense, but if Trevor Lawrence can ascend to the levels that I think he can, I truly think that they have a chance to actually make it to the Super Bowl. So I think both of those have good value on them, and I'm probably gonna place like a nice little bet on the Rams there pretty soon before the line moves. So who wants to take it next?
You have to tell me where you're getting these lines from because I just looked them up and I don't see any team below plus 500.
I got DraftKings to make it to the Super Bowl. So
championship rounds, yeah,
championship rounds.
Okay, I can go next. I think I would go with the Lions. I think I see plus 22 on that, 2,200 for the NFC. Sneaky team, like Shane said. I really like Ben Johnson. I think they have a weak division. I think there's a good chance they take all 6 games in the NFC North, which could put them in like a 2-seed kind of look. I don't think they'll dethrone whoever comes out of the NFC East. and, maybe a third seed or something. But I could see them having good position, somebody getting knocked off, and then playoffs run through Detroit, which would be crazy. So I kind of like how long shot those odds are. For the AFC, I'm going to go with the Browns, which I think is plus 4,000. If that roster comes together and everyone plays at their ceiling, I think that is a juggernaut team. I don't think that's going to happen, but if I'm laying a band on anybody plus 3,000, why not the Browns?
Yeah, I like that. Deshaun Watson, another quarterback who's shown you something before that people are counting out, that the number just kind of doesn't really match what we're seeing on the roster. Shane, you want to go next?
I did mention the Lions, but I kind of wanted to stay in division, but maybe veer off a little bit. A team that really interests me is actually the Green Bay Packers. Even with the loss of Aaron Rodgers, I have a lot of respect for Matt LaFleur, who I think is the sexiest head coach in the NFL. Say what you will. And I really do think there's a lot that they would be willing to move off of Aaron Rodgers 1 year removed from back-to-back MVP performances. They brought back Aaron Jones, still one of the best running backs in the league. They have a solid receiving core with Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, a really good young core right there. A really underrated offensive line with players like Elton Jenkins and Josh Myers and John Runyon on the interior. And the defense actually has a lot of playmakers. Everyone knows about Jared Alexander. No one really talks about Devondre Campbell, how good he's been. Quay Walker at linebacker, Preston Smith, along with players like Devontae Wyatt coming in from Georgia, Kenny Clark, Darnell. What?
Van Ness as well. They drafted Van Ness this year.
Lucas Van Ness, I was pretty high on him. I thought he got overdrafted a little bit, but not so much that I blame the Packers for not taking him. I think he has a high upside. He also has kind of low floor just because he can get beat if he gets pushed upright. And also, like you said, they play in a weak division, the NFC North. But I'm looking at their schedule right now. They have 6 games against playoff opponents. And I'm just going to tell you who they are. 2 games against Minnesota, 1 game against the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Bucks, and then the Giants. So, I mean, outside the Chiefs, they could win all 5 of those games, and the rest of the games they have are against teams who were under 500 last year. Teams like Pittsburgh and the Rams are kind of like are kind of we'll see type teams. I could definitely see them squeak into the playoffs as a wild card. And LaFleur's experience in the playoffs, they actually and even the veteran leadership on both sides of the ball can go a long way, especially if they really do believe Jordan Love is ready. We saw in instances last year when he filled in for Aaron Rodgers that he actually had some growth to him, some playmaking ability, some ability to actually be accurate with the football. I think they're a team to watch. On the AFC side, I'm going to veer away from teams who made the playoffs last year, and I'm going to bring a team a little bit out of there, but not too far out of there. No, I'm not talking about the Ravens because I've already been a Lamar Jackson fan. Just hear me out because y'all might think I'm a little bit crazy here. Okay, just hear me out.
Listening.
What if I told you that the Pittsburgh Steelers were, to me, a dark horse team that could do it, even in a stacked AFC team? Here's why. What's in the playoffs?
Blake left.
The playoffs. 2 biggest factors that come down to it are head coach and quarterback. Mike Tomlin is one of the 5 best head coaches in the NFL. The best is that guy up in Boston. And right now, he has a project quarterback in Kenny Pickett. But what they've done for him is they've reconstructed his offensive line from what was in shambles 2 years ago into a serviceable one, drafting guys like Broderick Jones, signing Isaac Seumalo from the Eagles. They went out and grabbed Allen Robinson, who I think will be a solid number 3 on that receiving core with George Pickens and Deontay Thompson. I think the AFC North right now belongs to the Bengals, but we also can't forget the fact that TJ Watt coming off injury is going to be huge. I really like the Steelers. I like their schedule. I like their team. And if Kenny Pickett really does advance in year 2, which if behind Mike Tomlin, there's no reason why he can't. They've done everything for him, giving him weapons, offensive line, everything. I could definitely see them being one of those dark horse teams that not only makes the playoffs, but actually contends for the Super Bowl.
So you want to know the craziest thing is the Packers have longer odds to make the Super Bowl than the Steelers do.
I can see that.
Steelers are plus 5,000. Packers are plus 65.
Oh. I mean, that's accurate. I will never bet against really good coaches and young quarterbacks with upside who we have not seen their upside yet.
It's good.
I like both of those. love the Steelers one actually.
This is why the show needs Shane. Who else is going to say Steelers to the Super Bowl? Where's Austin in these comments right now?
Yeah, he's not here. He's just still being mad at Mike Tomlin for whatever reason.
Steelers hate Mike.
They do. I don't know why. Don't understand it.
Steelers fans hate Mike Tomlin as much as Star Wars fans hate every Star Wars movie.
That is extremely accurate. Jesus.
That's actually.
That one hit home, man. Damn.
All right, Blake.
Yeah, Blake, tell me your long shot so I can forget about that.
Yeah, I don't think my long shots are quite as long as your guys, but because I wanted to keep them like semi-realistic, but like outside of like the top teams. So in the AFC, wasn't going to pick the Bills, Chiefs, or Bengals for this segment. So looking outside of that, which teams like scare me as a Bills fan the most? I think the Ravens would be one of the answers, but I just am not scared by them for whatever reason. I know they got better. It's the Jets to me, and it seems to be a new pattern where we get legend quarterbacks change teams and then they make a run at a Super Bowl, and I really cannot listen to Jets fans.
Yeah.
I can't have that, but especially if they get Dalvin Cook and have Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall back there. My God, that would really be just I really don't want that in my life. But they're a problem, and I'm really looking forward to that Bills Jets game. 76 days away, if anyone's wondering, for September 11th, Monday Night Football.
Very much wondering.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be between the Bills and the Jets for the AFC East. Dolphins fans are beating on their chest, making a lot of noise all off season. I think they're going to go 9-8, honestly. But I think that between whoever doesn't win the division, and this is a year where I could actually see the Bills not winning the division. I still think it's their division to lose. But I think whoever doesn't get it out of Bills Jets is going to be looking at that 5 seed wild card team that no one would really want to play. And then moving over to the NFC, I've been pretty upfront about me thinking that it's going to be the Niners going to the Super Bowl. And I've been pretty upfront about who the team I think they're going to beat in that game is the Cowboys. And if it wasn't the Niners, I'm looking around at the other teams. The Eagles are still kind of like one of the favorites in that conference. I don't think the Lions are there yet. I think they need to win their division, win a playoff game. I think there's levels to it, and so I think the Cowboys. I think Jets and Cowboys would be like those teams like outside of like those top favorite teams that I could see making a run at a Super Bowl.
All right, that was gross, Blake. That was gross. No more speaking from you for the show, all right?
Okay.
No.
That always cuts out the best time.
Yeah, you've been like slowly cutting out, but like only at the best times, and you just dipped when I said that, so that was perfect. All love. I do like those. They just make me just sick to my stomach for some reason. Sorry, Shane.
I'm trying to be objective here.
I know you don't want either one of those things to happen.
Because we love to hate Cowboy fans. I think Cowboy fans deserve a Super Bowl win.
Just trying to be objective.
No, it's cool, and I can't stand Jets fans either. So you're so right on that. Like,
I hope the Cowboys win the Super Bowl, but Jerry Jones sells the team a day before.
Yeah, I got all right. So this is kind of, since we're talking about the Cowboys, we might as well switch into the next segment to favorite futures. This is a little similar to the long shots. We're not talking conference. This could be any type of NFL future bet. So you could do player props, you could do award winner, anything you want. So mine is my first one. We can do two. Is the Dallas Cowboys to lose in the NFC Championship at plus 650.
You brought it in the NFC Championship game. I appreciate that.
I did. I told you it was going to be nice. I almost did the divisional round, but I got a little bit spicier because nobody's talking about the Cowboys. I think they will get over that hump, make it to the championship game, and just lose in dramatic, horrible fashion. Like the Des didn't catch it, caught it ball. Something like that's going to happen to you guys this year. And I'm sorry, but like that's the plus 650, that just screams value to me.
I agree.
So yeah, I love that. And I mentioned my other one a little earlier. It was Trevor Lawrence to win MVP at plus 1400. I mean, the Golden Locks are bringing home that MVP trophy, I think, this year. So yeah, there's really like Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones. If Ridley's back, that might be the best wide receiving core in the league. You added Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne, and Take Bigsby. They have a decent offensive line, good head coach. Everything's there for him, I think. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at for those two things. Those are things I'm going to be sprinkling a little bit of funds on before we come up to the season. What do you guys like? Blake, you want to start?
Yeah. So yeah, I was watching Daily Wager earlier this week. It's I like that show. I don't really like ESPN that much, but I do like that show. And there was a prop they had for Kadarius Toney to be the over/under was 5.5 touchdowns on the season, and I think that's the easiest bet of the entire year.
Yep. Mic drop.
Plus 110. So I take them for we were talking about 9.5 touchdowns. I think that's easy money for how few targets he had last year and in the touchdown production he was putting out, and in the Super Bowl he had one target and a touchdown, and he was really kind of starting to find his role last year. And assuming the team was talking about him being like they see him as a true number one receiver. I think 5.5 touchdowns is easy money, and then however brazy you're feeling after that to bump that number up and help your odds. And then the other one was I was supposed to do one on each side, wasn't I?
Oh, you could. It's whatever. This one could be whatever. I just said to pick.
So yeah. I know I said I was taking the Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl, but we're talking about odds, and obviously I'm secretly hoping that it's the Bills. And obviously, and so Super Bowl MVP usually goes to the quarterback, but how awesome would it be if we saw a defensive player win it? And how awesome would it be if we saw it be a player who's already won it, and we saw Von Miller take home Super Bowl MVP with a different team?
Woo! That's actually pretty spicy.
Bias.
Defense wins championships.
Tell that to the Niners.
Damn.
Well, it also helps
Talked about this.
people.
Guys, we discussed this one already, but that is a flaming hot take from Blake. I think Von Miller wins a second Super Bowl MVP on a new team. If you lock that in now, you might have a very pretty penny at the end of the year if that goes down.
Those odds got to be wild.
Yeah, it's got to be unbelievable. Because first, the odds for the Bills even to get to the Super Bowl is like plus 700. Let alone picking a defensive player to win the MVP in that game. Yeah.
That was a spicy one.
Love that. All right, Louie, hit us up.
All right, so I'm going to go. I must not understand how Coach of the Year awards work. Andy Reid is the furthest to win, so maybe they don't give it to people who are just consistently good. Because I was coming over here and I was going to say Dan Campbell, and he literally has the lowest odds to go, which is crazy to me. So I'm going to go. Man, I don't even know. This is such a hard list here. I'm going to go Garrett Wilson for Offensive Player of the Year at 2,500. I think he's going to have a really good season with Aaron Rodgers. I don't know you'll see his production increase a ton yardage-wise, but I think you will see touchdowns go ballistic because I don't really like any of their other options as red zone threats. I don't know off the top of my head. I can't even think of who the Jets tight end is right now.
I mean, I like Alan Lazard and Corey Davis as red zone threats.
I don't think Corey Davis is actually going to get that much playing time, if I'm being honest.
You're not wrong, but he's
Lazard,
still
Lazard I can see, but Lazard doesn't even have that many touchdowns total over his career, I don't think.
He's still 6'5".
So I like Wilson as a fade end zone player. I think he's going to catch double-digit touchdowns easily this year, and I think that'll put him up there with some good odds. And then I'm going to go see comeback player of the year is another one where I thought Calvin Ridley would have good odds, but DeMar Hamlin's probably going to take that pretty easy. So I'm going to go offensive rookie of the year, not as spicy. I'm going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs on the Lions for plus 900.
Love that. I
think Bijan Robinson's getting all the love. I think if Jahmyr Gibbs is the clear one in that offense, like they don't try and ease him in, which I don't think they will because they're missing Jameson Williams. So I think they're going to rely on weapons as much as they can those first 6 games. I think you'll actually see him statistically have more overall yardage than Bijan Robinson.
I definitely think it's going to be a yardage thing as opposed to a touchdown thing. I do think Monty might be their red zone back, but I do think Gibbs is going to get quite a lot of receptions and in between the 20s work.
Yeah, so I have Jahmyr Gibbs going over 1,600 all-purpose yards on the year.
Yeah.
And I think that would put him in a strong offensive rookie of the year candidacy.
Yeah, I agree. Shane, what do you got here?
So I did something a little different. I got one good, one bad for each of y'all's teams, as a matter of fact.
Woo!
I'll start with you, Blake.
All right.
You want the good or the bad first?
He dipped.
Bad news always first.
Okay. The bad news is Stephon Diggs will be I'm just kidding. I was gonna say trade.
Oh,
no. The bad news.
You know how the salary cap works. You know.
For y'all is that once again Gabe Davis Gabe Davis won't be the second lead receiver. It'll be Dawson Knox. Dawson Knox is gonna surpass him as a second lead receiver, which is gonna piss you off because I know how much you've been wanting Gabe Davis to take that next step. He's been primarily a deep threat. Where'd he go? He's been primarily a deep threat for his career, and Stephon Diggs has been the one taking the bulk of the targets. But it's okay. You want to know why? Because Josh Allen will win the MVP. He was the early season MVP last year up until the back-to-back games between the Packers and the Jets. Josh Allen is also like one of those quarterbacks that feels like the NFL is really pushing for him to get the MVP. Him and Joe Burrow like next on that list. Josh Allen, to me right now, if you ask me, I think would get the best odds just because it feels like the NFL really wants him to get it. I think Josh Allen's going to win the MVP. Now, let's go with you, Ty. You want to go to the bad first?
Yeah, no, definitely the bad. Lay it on me.
All right, the bad?
Yeah.
Bad news is y'all will finish 4th in the AFC East.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's okay. Only 2 teams are going to make the playoffs in the East.
That's not a hot take.
But the Patriots are going to finish 4th.
Yeah.
But the good news is that y'all will have found y'all's new number 1 receiver in one Tyquan Thornton, who will finish 4th in a single season in the Patriots' history for receiving touchdowns. Right now, it's Randy Moss at 23. Rob Gronkowski with 17, Randy Moss with 13, Rob Gronkowski with 12. He's going to get 12 or 13 touchdowns this year as a deep threat. He will average over 17 yards per reception. He's going to be primarily deep threat, but he's going to be a touchdown machine. Tyquan Thornton will be y'all's established number 1 receiver, even though y'all will finish last.
I love that. I'm totally fine with that.
And for you, Louie.
Give me the good news first. We'll mix it up.
Does anyone know?
He's been prepping for weeks.
Does anyone know the NFL rookie sack record? And who holds it? Off the top of your head.
Isn't it 17?
I feel like it's TJ Watt if I had to. No?
I think it's like 11 and a half. It's lower.
In 1999, Javon Curse set season rookie sack record with 14 and a half.
14 and a half.
Will Anderson will tie that. I'm looking right now at their schedule, and now they have a handful of really good left tackles. Someone like Orlando Brown Jr., they play in Week 10 against the Bengals. They play someone like Roderick Jones from the Steelers, who actually had a really good time, really dominant time against him in their days in college. Outside of that, it's a lot of question marks at left tackle. He's going to primarily be their right defensive end. I think they're going to unleash him. I had a really high grade on him. I think there's going to be at least 4 games where he has 2 or more sacks in those games. I think he's going to at least tie Javon Curse with 14.5 sacks. And the fact that they play 17 games a year obviously helps his case. But Will Anderson, I just have such high regard for. I think he's going to at least meet that mark. Now the bad news. Let's go to your other rookie first-round pick. C.J. Stroud will throw under 20 touchdowns and over 10 interceptions. Whether 14, 15, it doesn't matter. He will struggle his rookie year. He will have moments, but he will have teen touchdowns and teen interceptions. When you saw him play at Ohio State, when he had a clean pocket and he had a separation on receivers, he was able to play with consistency and have the ball thrown downfield and have his guys make plays. Unfortunately, what we saw too often against really good teams, a really good pass rush, is that he a lot of times will fold under the pressure and throw the ball away or just simply throw the ball into traffic. And that's something that a lot of rookies, no offense, a lot of rookies have to deal with their first season. The right thing to do is to put him out there and let him take his lumps, because that's how you learn from him. You learn from your mistakes. He's a smart player. He's an accurate player, but he's going to struggle. This Texans offense has a lot of potential upside players, but don't have a lot of players that met there yet. I think the return of John Mechie really helps because he's going to play slot. And a lot of times as a quarterback, your best friend is a slot receiver and a tight end. Having someone like Dalton Schultz really helps that case. But that offensive line outside of the tackles and Shaq Mason is still, we'll see. Kenyon Green, we'll see. We'll see what Juice Scruggs looks like at center. And also, they're going to play a lot of really good edge rushers this year. And even though he is obviously their best option at quarterback, and I think he still has a high potential, we're going to see the rookie. We're going to see him have a struggling rookie year. No offense. You knew this. You knew this is going to take at least 2 or 3 years to unfold. He's going to throw more than 10 interceptions and less than 20 touchdowns, but it's okay, because if he can learn from that, he'll be just fine. And plus, you'll have Will Anderson and Sharon, who's gonna compete with Javon, whatever the hell that says his name, Javon Curse, or the
Free.
Man, that's a really high and a really low. I feel like theirs were pretty easy.
I wanted to give y'all something on my way back as my appreciation.
13 touchdowns for Tyquan Thornton. You got where I don't know. Well, I mean, I feel great about that. I mean, we could be the 4th team in the AFC and still win 10 games.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think y'all finished last, but I only think 2 teams from the AFC East will make the playoffs. I ain't as high on the Jets as everybody else is.
Yeah. All right. I think that was pretty good. I think we went through that one pretty good. But so yeah.
Well, we're over an hour and we haven't even got to the division part yet.
This is the longest segment.
Yep. So we're gonna get right to the divisions. We're
gonna tell you about our new podcast. I mean, our new show that's launching.
There
right, Tyler? Fantasy Rant. So we're StadiumRant's bringing in a new flagship fantasy football show hosted by our very own Dan Baker, Evan Gooding, Mason Beck, who are some of the smartest, well-prepared players in the game. They're going to help you win your drafts this year. They're going to help you bring home those sweet trophies like the one you can get from Trophy Smack using our affiliate link. So, why would you want to be second? Why would you want to be third when StadiumRant can help you be first?
That was incredible. Way to be. Loving that. I mean, I played in like 50 fantasy leagues, so I'm definitely going to be listening to that show pretty often. Let's get into the dissecting divisions. We're going into the AFC West. I'll start with the Chiefs. Might as well get that one out quick. The most polarizing player on this team right now is Chris Jones. Yeah, is their defensive tackle, Chris Jones. He's holding out a little bit. There's a little bit of a contract dispute right now. I think he wants to have a little bit of his money moved around into a bonus, maybe a guarantee for this year. he is really one of the biggest difference makers on that team. Whenever that defense needs a play, Jones is there causing an issue in the middle of the offensive line for a quarterback. Like, they wouldn't have won that Super Bowl without, or either Super Bowl without Chris Jones, really. He made impactful plays all the way up to both of those runs. So I think that him kind of holding out, having a little bit of an issue with his contract, I think that that's something to kind of watch. I don't think he's going to really hold out in the regular season, but I think he's one of their most underrated, least talk about players who really matters to them. One hot take. I mean, Blake kind of stole it with the Kadarius Toney thing, so I'll move to a different receiver. Rashid Rice is going to be a 10 touchdown scorer. He's going to have 10 touchdowns. Yeah. We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that. This is going to be the year that Mahomes gives Kelsey 10, 12 touchdowns. He gives Toney 9 touchdowns, and he's going to give Rashid Rice 10 touchdowns. Why not? Hey, it's Mahomes. He's going to throw for 45 anyway. Jerick McKinnon's going to get some of those as well. Best game on the schedule. I mean, anytime the Chiefs are on TV is a pretty good game. So I'd probably like to see their Bengals rematch. I believe that is in
Week 9.
Yeah, Week 9. No, I see week 17 here.
Oh wait, you're right. Yeah, it's second week 9. Week 9 Bills Bengals.
Yeah, relax. It's not your turn yet.
Well, I have the same game, but it's okay.
All right, fine. I'll change the game then.
No, don't change. It's the right decision.
All right, yeah. So it's Cincy. For me, Joe Burrow, Pat Mahomes. That's kind of what we're doing there. My record prediction for Kansas City, they're gonna win 14 games. Like they're gonna be right in the swing of things. Louis, you want to go next?
Yeah, totally happy to go next. I'm gonna go with the Chiefs being either 12-5 or 13-4. It's hard to predict where the Chief losses will come from because they always lose games they shouldn't, like the game to the Colts last year. There's always just some weird ones that they drop. The most polarizing player for me is I can't think of his name. Shane's going to be so ashamed of me. They brought in this new guy at left tackle, and they paid him a lot of money.
Jawan Taylor.
Thank you, Jawan Taylor. I think it's a little bit of an overpay. I do think he's a pretty good left tackle. It was a pretty rich contract for me. So I think he's going to have to be as good or better than Orlando Brown was last year. And I think the success of that team really, really hinges on on their left tackle. I'm sorry. My hot take is that I think the Chiefs will be buyers at the deadline, and I think they're going to trade for a running back. So I don't know who that'll be, but I don't think Pacheco hits quite as the numbers he wants, and I don't know if Jerick McKinnon will be as effective. So I think they'll look to bring somebody in. And then my game of the year with them is, man, I looked at this earlier. Do they play the Dolphins this year?
Yeah, AFC West is matched up with the AFC East.
Week 9
Yep. Week 9 against the Dolphins. Return of Tyreek Hill. You know, I love a revenge game, so that's my
Munich game.
Yeah, and it's overseas too, and it like sold out, I think. So
in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Shane, you want to?
I agree with Louis about Jawan Taylor, but not just because of his bit of an overpay. It's because he's gone from right tackle to left tackle. Now, to be fair, he played left tackle and right tackle a little bit at Florida, but he was primarily a right tackle in Jacksonville, and he was actually played decent while he was there. Even still, they went out and signed Donovan Smith as insurance because he can play both sides as well, just in case Jawan Taylor has too much of a hard time going from right to left. You ask any offensive lineman, they'd rather go from left tackle to left guard or vice versa than go from left side to right, just because of the way your feet are, the way where your body sits, the way your weight is distributed, where you're used to playing like that. It can have an effect. Now, he has the talent to do it, and Mahomes is smart enough to know usually where the hole of the offensive line is, so he knows where he has to move. but I can't see them winning any less than 12 games. But I think somewhere in the middle, like 13-4 is realistic. And one of those losses I think is going to come against one of their AFC West opponents. And it's only because every time they play, he's looking at me. Every time they play the Raiders are the team that always gives them headaches, and I don't understand why. But yeah, week 12 at Las Vegas in the modified black hole. I don't know what they call it in Vegas right now, but they show out for Chiefs week. The Raiders and Chiefs hate each other. The AFC West is full of teams that hate each other, except they kind of just they're more annoyed by the Chargers than anything else. Like I think it's the Broncos, Raiders, and Chiefs that hate each other, and they acknowledge the Chargers exist. But for some reason, whether it's because that hatred makes teams play above expectation, maybe I'm higher on Jimmy Garoppolo in Josh McDaniel's system than maybe most people are, or maybe I just love the fact that they have Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, and they signed Jacoby Myers. Sorry, Tyler Lamb, and that I think the Raiders could be an annoying team, not a good team, but an annoying team, one that really bugs teams and really pushes them to their limits. That's always a team that really that makes the Chiefs struggle. So I think that's gonna be the one to watch. Your mic's on, or your mic's off.
Thank you. Sorry. Bahuki, you can go with the Chiefs here, and then you can start it with the Chargers, and then we'll run it back through that.
Yeah. Sorry for interrupting earlier, but the Chiefs are heavy on my brain all the time. I don't think there's any way the Chiefs are losing 5 games this year. 12-5 as a Bills fan, I would be doing cartwheels if they made it that easy. I think the Chiefs are 14-3. I think the Bengals are 13-4. I think the Bills are 12-5. That's kind of how I think it shakes out. Objectively, maybe I'm wrong. There's injuries that play a role. I agree. The Raiders are a team that could potentially be a team they played the Broncos 2 times in 3 weeks, and that's like a really quick turnaround. I know the Broncos aren't really a threatening team, but usually when a team wins the first game and then has to play another team like a week or 2 later, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to beat a team twice, like in succession like that. They play, but yeah, games against the Bills, games against the. I wasn't gonna pick any. I was gonna try not to pick any Bills games because we play this entire division, so I could pick them for every matchup. But consider the Chiefs Bengals game objectively is one of my games of the entire year. But considering Tyler took that one, I will say Bills Chiefs is second into that because those are objectively the top 3 teams in the AFC right now. And you could throw Dolphins, Chiefs, Jets, Chiefs in there, but if I'm being honest, obviously I'm watching that Bills Chiefs game. Most polarizing player, I'm going to say Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't think, because he didn't have his fifth year option exercise. I think Jared McKinnon is a free agent right now. I could be mistaken, but I'm players out there who remain unsigned. He's one of them. Doesn't mean they don't bring him back, but as of right now, I'm pretty sure he's unsigned. I agree with what you said about them potentially bringing someone in at the trade deadline in the running back market for that exact reason that Pacheco has really kind of solidified himself. He's in a 7th round rookie deal, so he's making dirt for money. And Edwards-Helaire is kind of now or never mode. What hot take? I don't think it's that hot of a take, but I think the Chiefs are going back to back this year. I know they're probably the favorites, but going back to back is one of the most difficult things to do in sports. And this is the year that they become a dynasty unless someone stops them. And I think the only ones who are going to stop them are themselves potentially, and with whether it be injuries or something. But Bengals are really good. Bills are really good. But the truth is they're both looking up at the Chiefs right now.
All right.
Continue. I appreciate having me back on. I got to get going. I didn't realize the show would take this long. I do a prior engagement.
All good.
Hope to see y'all again next week. We'll see how my new career at iHeart does. I don't want to else away, but thanks for having me on again, y'all.
Of course, man. Next time we'll try and keep it under an hour, which won't happen, but we'll try.
Say it every week.
I'll see y'all later.
Louis pissed.
Every week, man.
I'm sorry, it just happens. Like I try
too much on the sheet, man.
There's 4 sections.
Where's this moderator that's gonna be like, this section's time is over?
Yeah, we really need that. I try and do it, but then I don't feel like I don't want to like cut into one of your points. I try and do it at the end of a point. You know what I mean? But anyway, because we're rambling now, but Chargers, Bahuki.
All right, Spark Notes, Chargers edition. Most polarizing player could be either Mike Williams or Derwin James. Can they stay on the field?
Okay.
I don't. They're amazing players. They're never there when you need them. Record. I'll say 10-7, 11-6. I think it's between them and the Ravens for the 6-7 seed. And hot take. I don't know if it's that hot of a take, but I think this is their head coach's last year. I don't know. I'm going to say he gets fired before the season's over. And Kellen Moore becomes their interim head coach.
I like that. Best game on the schedule.
The game against the Ravens. That was my game of the year for the Ravens when we did the North. That's going to be a battle for playoff position, and head to head, it's likely that they both finish at like that 11-6 mark, and that'll be what determines who gets that spot.
Word. That was very, very concise, Bahuki. Good job, Louis. Your turn.
Yeah, I have the Chargers at 10-7 as well, or on the downside 9-8. Most polarizing player, I think, is Khalil Mack. Big name. I think he got a pretty nice deal when he came over when they traded for him. So I think he needs to start performing on the opposite side of Joey Bosa a little bit more. My game of the year for the Chargers is against the Cowboys. I think that is offense on the move. And my hot take for the Chargers is that Quentin Johnston is their leading receiver.
Oh, I love that. I love that take. So I'll start with the hot take here. I think JC Jackson comes back from injury and plays himself into a semi-reputable role again. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying he's gonna come back and be a top 5 cornerback or anything like that, but he could come back and be like a top half cornerback again. I think that's something that's in the realm of possibility. They gave him a giant bag of money. He's good. It's kind of like the Clyde Edwards-Helaire thing where it's time to nut up or shut up. Like, it's really time for him to do this thing, or you're not going to be able to do this thing for much longer at that price tag. The best game of the season for me. I like this. I like this Chargers Miami game week 1, honestly. I like that a lot. I think both teams are going to come out firing because neither one ended on the most flavorful of note, I should say. Both teams have a pretty bad taste in their mouth. So dealing with that, they're both going to come out wanting to win, and offense. It's going to be a really solid game, I think. Their record, I think they're going to go 9-8 as well. Their coach sucks. I'm not a Staley guy. He smart dude. I'm sorry. He just doesn't seem to make the smartest decisions when it comes down to crunch time in these games. And it's costing his team wins now. So yeah, that's my most polarizing player on this team's got to be Justin Herbert. It's time. Like, it's time for you to be Justin Herbert now. Like, ascend. Similar thing with Trevor Lawrence. I just don't seem to think about Justin Herbert because he lost to Trevor Lawrence in that game. That, like, If Herbert had won that game, we're probably talking about Herbert as taking that second step up and ascending into that spot. But Lawrence came back and was furious in that comeback. So now we're talking about him. So most polarizing players got to be Justin Herbert. He's got to get his voice out there. He's got to be heard as a leader. He's going to make that team his, I think. Broncos. Let's get to the Broncos. I think the Broncos are also going to be 8-9 this year. It's going to be a watchable offense. Most polarizing player on the Broncos, I think, has to be at this point Russell Wilson. I mean, he is that's the most polarizing player on the team. It is like he is their star figure, and that's the dude everybody's watching. If he comes out and shows some of what he was in Seattle, they should be a decent team. One hot take is Samaje Perine is going to have a 1,200-yard year this year with the Broncos. I'm a big fan of Javonte Williams, but I do not like running backs coming the year off of after their ACL tear. He blew up his leg. He tore his ACL and MCL. It was a bad tear and not that great of a surgery. So he's had kind of a hard incline to get back to the NFL, or not to the NFL, to playing. And it's just tough to trust a running back coming off the ACL tear when you're not Adrian Peterson. So I think that Perine's getting a bunch of work on an offense that is going to run the ball and going to give him passing down work. Perine looked really good for Joe Mixon last year at times too. So I think that I think that is good for that. Best game on the schedule for the Broncos. I'm going to go ahead and say the New England game. I'm going to say this old rivalry, New England game, because there is a lot of animosity still from the Peyton Manning era days, and we had battles back and forth and all that good stuff. So there's not a lot of exciting Broncos games on the schedule, but a trip to Gillette, I think that could reignite something. I think both teams are going to be in the mix at Week 16, so they're both going to be fighting for something. You want to take the Broncos, Louis?
Absolutely. I think my record prediction for them is right around yours, 8-9, 9-8. Not everyone can have a winning schedule, so I'm going to go 8-9. Most polarizing player aside from Russ, I think is probably, I don't even know. Maybe Cortland Sutton, or I'm going to go Jerry Jeudy, I guess. He's really touted as a route runner coming out. I don't think he's been as effective in the league as people hoped. He ticked it up at the end of last year a little bit. So I think we need to see both of these guys put on an absolute clinic this year, or else one of them will be leaving Denver. I think the game of the year for the Broncos, I also kind of had the Patriots tagged here. I think I'm going to go Packers, just because I think Jordan Love is not going to like playing against the Sean Payton defense. So that will be my game for them. And then my hot take is going to be that's not even a hot take. But Pat Surtain, number one corner in the NFL this year. Far and away. Like, not even close.
Okay. No, the not even close part, I think, is a little bit hot.
I don't think he will allow a single touchdown reception, and I think he'll have 5+ PBUs and 5 interceptions.
All right, yeah, that got spicy towards the end there. But Hookie, hit the Broncos up, then do the Raiders.
All right. I can't believe you let me have this one, so I'm just going to do it first, Louis. Game of the year. It's Broncos-Jets. Nathaniel Hackett revenge game.
I was like, the Saints not on the schedule. I looked.
I was saying it in my head. I was like, here it comes.
Now they have to play a full season for it to be a revenge game.
Hot take. We were talking about how the Chiefs inevitably lose a game to a bad team. I was kind of alluding to it earlier. The Broncos are going to be that bad team in their second matchup. Divisional game, 2 times in 3 weeks. Most polarizing player, Cortland Sutton, and it's obviously Russell Wilson, but I will pick someone different. Basically, for what Tyler said earlier, Javonte Williams. What is he going to be like? When is it like? How long is it going to take him to come back? Hopefully sooner rather than later. I got him in Dynasty. Was that everything?
What's your record, I think, for the Broncos? Then you can do the Raiders.
7 wins. I'll say seven wins. 7-10.
All right.
Raiders.
Raiders.
Their most polarizing player. It's got to be Josh Jacobs right now. They're talking. That was something that we kind of missed from the news drop. I mean, the lack thereof, but the reports are coming out that he might be pulling a Le'Veon Bell this year. If he's they don't see him coming to training camp. They don't see him showing up for week 1. He has no intention to play under the tender. Game of the year for the Raiders. I'll say Raiders Pats, McDaniel versus Belichick. And what else?
Yeah, a hot take in the record prediction. That's that.
Record prediction. I'm gonna put them at 6 wins. I'm gonna say 6. I'm gonna say that they're a shade worse than the Broncos. 6-11. And hot take for the Raiders. I'll say that Devontae Adams gets traded at the deadline.
Okay, I like that. All right, Louis, take the Raiders, and then I'll do it, and then we can get out of here.
So I have the Raiders at 4-13. I think they are starting the year without Jimmy, and then I don't think Jimmy's going to look quite as dynamic coming back. I think the game of the year for them is whatever one Raiders fans get to watch a win. I'm going to go maybe against the Bears unconfidently. Man, looking at the schedule, I could honestly see them losing every single game. I'm going to go against Colts. So second to last week. Most polarizing player to me is going to be Chandler Jones. Where is your role now that they drafted Tyree Wilson and that Max Crosby is still having a great stretch? I think Jones was really touted coming into the Raiders. I don't think it's really panned out for them. And I think if he is wanting to see playtime, he's going to really, really have to step his game up and be consistently applying pressure to offenses. And then what am I missing? My hot take?
Yeah.
My hot take is that Mike McDaniels is fired before the end of the year.
Josh McDaniel.
Josh McDaniels. Thank you.
All right, I'll fight back on that just for a quick second. I think that he stayed out of the quarterback market this year, so he could give himself the time to try and get Caleb Williams for next year. I think they signed Jimmy. What do you mean they won't be bad enough?
The Cardinals.
We just looked at their schedule. They might lose. They might win 3 games.
But the thing is, if you're trying to be that bad, you're not going to have one of the best receivers in the NFL. Like they will win games they should not win.
Yeah, no, I get you.
0-17, but I mean, like I could see them like Brock Bowers sweepstakes or MHJ maybe, but I don't think you're in Caleb Williams territory yet.
I get you. So most polarizing player on this team, it's like honestly, I might not even go player. I think I'm going to go Josh McDaniels. I think Josh McDaniels is the most polarizing person on this operation. I do think he's in the hot seat. I don't think he gets fired this year because of the quarterback situation, but I do think that they need to make massive strides in their offensive system with the players that they have in there. And he just needs to, the operation just needs to run smoother. I don't think it's going to. So my hot take is that, yeah, I still think my hot take is they might surpass the Cardinals as the worst team in the league. at some point because I do think Pahuki's Devontae Adams trade's very much on the table. Josh Jacobs might not show up. All of a sudden, your offense is what's it called? Jacoby Myers and Zamir White and Michael Mayer. That's no kid. So yeah, I think they're gonna go like 3-14. My best game on the schedule for the Raiders would be Detroit. I know, not Detroit. The Giants. Darren Waller revenge game. He comes in, he absolutely ruins the Raiders in week 11.
Something.
Yeah, I think you did. I think it's smart. But
during the season, I'll give you guys weekly revenge game updates.
We should just have a revenge segment.
There's an assistant coach that moved over. He's now a data analyst, but revenge.
Oh, no. All right, guys. Before we get down the rabbit hole, let's call it for this time. We'll do the impact block at the beginning of next show. We're not going to have a show next week. It's 4th of July. I doubt anybody will come and watch because it's 4th of July. Nobody wants to watch a YouTube show that night. So we'll be back after next week when it's not a holiday and everybody wants to talk more about football. So thank you, everybody, for coming, and appreciate y'all watching. Appreciate y'all being here. Shout out to Shane, too, for sure, and StadiumRant. Yes, sir. Peace out.